number 6 SL brake equipment for the diesel electric yard switching locomotives. Instructions pamphlet number 504615, June 1950th. Westinghouse Air Brake Company, Wilmerdine, Pennsylvania. Shows a KH6P brakes valve. Alright, then equipment. In the design of the 6SL brake equipment for the modern switching locomotives follow the same general principles employed with the predecessor switcher equipment. Switcher horsepower, utility increased, braking requirements are amplified, necessitating additional features meeting expanding services. The 6SL brake equipment provided for every switching requirement covering the entire yard switch field. This important feature of the 6SL brake equipment as described in the pamphlet are: one locomotive may be applied with any desired pressure between the minimum and maximum, and this pressure will automatically maintain locomotive brake cylinder regardless of leakage of them or variation piston trouble until released by the brake valve. 2. The locomotive brake can be graduated on and off either the automatic or independent brake valves. 3. It is always possible to release the locomotive brake with the independent brake, even with the automatic applied maximum brake force in emergency, ensuring shortest possible stopping distance. 5. Rail sanding forward and reverse operation, manual control of the brake valve, sander valve, bell ringing by manual control of the brake valve, bell ringer valve, 7. Multiple unit operation. Parts of the equipment. The following is a list for the operating parts which make up the single end of the locomotive with a short description. Each air compressor with a compression driven either the electrical motor directly with the engine, furnishing with the compressed air with either the brake system and auxiliaries. 2. The compressor governor automatically controls the operation of the compressor between the predetermined minimum and maximum pressure. 3. 2 main reservoirs in which the compressed air is delivered with the air compressor where it is cooled to atmospheric temperature within store for use in charging with the brake system. 4. 1 aftercooler located in the pipe between the first and second main reservoir is used to ensure the proper cooling of the main reservoir air. 5. 2 automatic drain valves, one located with the first main reservoir, discharge precipitated water from the first main reservoir. Another drain valve located in the pipe between the aftercooler and the second main reservoir with the discharge of moisture from the aftercooler. 6. 2 safety valves to protect against excessive main reservoir pressure. 7. A pedestal situated in the cab on which the following devices are located: automatic brake valve portion to the control of the operated train locomotive brakes with the proper move of the automatic brake valve handle engagement. The engine man is able to charge the entire air brake equipment of the locomotive of the train with the air applied with the brakes. Hold them applied, release the brakes of the locomotive of the train, or hold the locomotive brake applied while releasing the train brakes, recharging the entire air brake equipment. An independent brake valve portion to the control of the operation of the independent brake on the locomotive by proper movement of the independent brake valve handle. The locomotive brake can be operated independently of the train brakes at any and all times. A feed valve which automatically maintains predetermined normal air pressure for the brake system. A 2-position cock means which the automatic brake valve is cut out on the second locomotive or when double heading. A bell ringer valve which operates locomotive bells to provide a warning approach. A sander valve which provides forward or reversing sanding the locomotive wheels depending on the position of the sander valve handle. 8. An equalizer lever wire which adds volume to the space above the equalizing piston of the brake valve so that the reduction of the brake pipe pressure may be properly made during the surface application of the brakes. Distribution valve with automatic control of the flow of the air main reservoir with the locomotive brake cylinder with applying with the brakes over the brakes from the brake cylinder with the atmosphere releasing from the brakes automatically maintains locomotive brake cylinder pressure against leakage, keeping it constant, holding the brake applied with the distribution valve therefore bears a similar relation to the brakes of the locomotive. The operating valve bears to those on the car beside with performing additional functions. 10. 2 duplex air gauges, one of the indicates the equalizing reservoir, main reservoir pressure, other brake pipe, locomotive brake cylinder pressure. The UAH brake cylinders with a piston rise and connected through the brake levers to the brake shoe when the pistons are forced outward with the air pressure for the force is transmitted through the rise and lever of the brake shoe with apply them to the wheels. A 1 1/4 inch emergency brake valve located with the brake pipe enables the operator to apply with the brakes necessary. 13. Essential figure of the dirt collector with the protection of the distribution valve of the dirt collector, purpose for the preventing piping scale with the cinders for the form material particles and kind of the reaching of the device above mentioned. 14. An H air filter with the main reservoir pipe with the equipment used to prevent the entrance of the dirt with the moisture with the air brake device with the cock with the bottom of the air filter used to drain off all residue. 15. A combination strain with the check valve which together the cutout cock constitute the dead end fixture with enabling the brake of the locomotive being hauled dead end in a train to be operated like those in any of the car train. 16 various cutout cocks, housing, couplings, dummy couplings, etc. Locations used for which will be readily understood with a diagram of the equipment. Plate 10 with a description which follows. 17 while not in part of the air brake apparatus of the locomotive, usually equipped with the air horn, the head end of the locomotive used as a warning of the approach to the necessary whistle valve of the cutout of the cocks are included. The brake system requires 2 lines with pipe, main reservoir pipe, brake pipe, later being continuous throughout the train. The main reservoir pipe of the branches leading as valve of the distribution valve of the dead end fixtures to the brake valve of the brake pipe leads from the brake valve through the link of the locomotive and train, having branches connecting the distribution valve of the locomotive to the operating valve of on each car. The forms of means of communication when the engine man proper manipulation of the brake valve handle can operate the brakes on the entire train. Alright, description and parts. We're going to cut the tape there, keep these short. Now let's go ahead and read it. Alright, description of the parts. Motor-driven air compressor. The operation made for the 3 CD motor-driven air compressors, fully described in instruction pamphlet 5002-5. Compressor governors. The S16 compressor governor is pneumatically double safety valve type with the fully described in instruction pamphlet number 5042-1. Reservoir of the main reservoir, figure 2, are used with the store of the cool compressor air furnished with the air compressor, also depositing moisture and oil, other foreign material with allowing only clean, dry air to pass with the brake system. This assist with the piping should be installed with the drain into the reservoir. An accumulation of water with the foreign material will not only injurious to the reservoir with the liability to seriously reduce the capacity of the reservoir, should be drained at regular intervals, meaning the drain cocks are provided for that purpose. The E7B safety valve, purpose of the safety valve, figure 3 is vent with a pressure predetermined point in order to prevent excess of the main reservoir pressure of the locomotive. When the pressure in the cavity under the valve 4 was sufficient to overcome the pressure exerted from the tension in spring 6 of the valve 4 raised from the seat, the air pressure then is exerted with the cavity by the B over the full diameter of the valve 4, which provides sufficient extra force to continue the valve moving against spring 6. Air flows past the valve into the atmosphere through port C, while the open position of the upper end of the valve 4 closes off the communication with the chamber G to the chamber E, so that the air cannot flow through the bypass port D to chamber E with the pressure below the valve 4 decreases the tension of the spring 6 forces the valve downwardly. This restricts the opening ports of the C end of the on one stage of the movement opens the chamber A to chamber G and to chamber E. Although the ports F are open to the atmosphere, they must be restricted by ring 8, as it allows the pressure to build up rapidly with the chamber E and assists the spring 6 in closing valve 4 to its seat. The adapter lever and strainer 10 provide the large capacity of the pipe connection replaceable for the screen with keeping the pipe scale for the other large foreign materials from the valve seat. To adjust the safety valve maximum open pressure with the remove of the cap nut 3 with the screw down with the back off the regulating nut 7 as required after the replacement of the cap nut with the minimum of the closing pressure of the safety valve can be adjusted with the changing the size of the ports F the unit using regulating nut 8 with the purpose of the adjustment screw with the unit nut 9. The K8-6P pedestal brake valve. The K8-6P pedestal brake valve furnished with the tray type of the pedestal for the automatic brake valve portion with the rotary type of the valve for control of the train and locomotive brake for the independent brake valve portion of the self-lapping type, which provided with the independent and flexible control of the locomotive brake. 4 bolt holes in the base for the pedestal are provided with the insulation purpose of the pipe connections. They're made with the pipe of the bracket face beneath the floor sheet with the meaning of the Wapco tight fittings. Only piping in the cab of the copper tubing for the gauge and the governor connection for the tank of the upper portion of the pedestal. This arrangement provided with the compact brake valve insulation that occupies minimum space eliminates practicality of all heavier air piping from the cab. With heavier locomotive, the repairs are made. It's only necessary to break pipe connections and lift the complete pedestal from the cab. Located with the pedestal brake valve body are the following portions: automatic brake valve portion, independent brake valve portion, bell ringer valve, the sander valve, and the 2-position cutout cock and the feed valve. The pipe connection to the pipe bracket are designed numerically so marked on the bracket. 3/8 inch equalizer reservoir pipe marked 5. 3/8 inch application cylinder pipe marked 2. 3/8 inch distribution valve release pipe marked 4. And a 1 inch brake pipe marked 1. 1 main reservoir marked 7. 3/8 inch bell pipe ringer marked 10. 3/8 inch forward sanding pipe marked 11. 3/8 inch reverse sanding pipe marked 13. 3/8 inch automatic sanding pipe marked 21. The automatic brake valve portion of the removed from the pedestal with the backing off of the nuts 3 from the 4 stud with the figure 6 of the first. However, the 2-position cock should be closed. The automatic brake valve handle placed in emergency position with the main reservoir cutout cock and closed in order to prevent lifting from the seats of the feed valve, slide valve, of the rotary valve of the automatic brake valve. Independent brake valve portion only may be removed, backing up the nuts of the 4 studs 19. Substantially the same pressure in the brake pipe and equalizer reservoir during the charging operations ensured by the bypassing equalizing piston. This feature is possible when releasing the brake is to make a reapplication promptly. The bypass type of the equalizing piston consists of the piston 41 piston stem 42 screws together with a held and lock washer stems. Contains a little spring 45 at the center of the spring seat 44. Normally holds a Wabco check valve 43 with a bead seat formed inside the face of the piston with the back pipe pressure below the piston equalizing reservoir. The pressure above the piston equal to the spring hole with the bypass of 43 seated. Whenever the equalizing reservoir pressure is raised higher than the brake pipe pressure, as generally occurs during the release of the brakes owing to the rapid changing of the small equalizing reservoir volume compared to the brake pipe volume, the excess pressure moves the check valve from the seat, permitting the equalizing reservoir air to flow from the connecting ports for the top of the piston, past the check valve to the spring cavity, thence through the drilled holes of the valve stem to the brake pipe, where the pressure equalizes the spring seat with the valve, thereby closing the bypass. This is to keep the brake pipe and equalizing reservoir pressure automatically equalized. The 5-position automatic brake valve handle at the beginning of the extreme left, the running, holding lap, and service and emergency. Following paragraph portions are taken in order in which they must be generally used, rather in their regular order than mentioned above. Your running position is proper position of the handle of the train brake system when the brakes are charged, ready for use. That when the brakes are not being operated. D. To release the locomotive of the train brakes and in the position. Large direct passage is open from the feed valve of the brake pipe so the ladder will charge rapidly with the brake equipment can take the air but cannot attain the pressure above which the feed valve is adjusted. The equalizing pressure charges uniformly with the brake pipe, keeping the pressure for the two sides of the equalizing piston equal. The distributing valve, the release of the pipe, the connect with the atmosphere. Your service position. This position gives the gradual reduction of the brake pipe pressure to cover the service application of the gradual reduction is to prevent quick action. Lap position. This position gives the hold of the brake supply with the service application until the desired either to make a further brake pipe reduction or release them. All ports are closed. Movement of the brake valve handle running before returning to lap. Move them in distributing the valve equalizing piston 26 and slide valve 31 to release position. This connects the application cylinder to the distributing valve release pipe. Your holding position. The position is so named because the locomotive brake is held applied while the train brakes are being released. Therefore, the auxiliary reservoir recharged with the feed valve pressure. In this case, the E for the position is not desired. The removal of the plug rotary valve seat causes the brake valve function the same holding as in running position. The plug is designated plug A and is located on the passage port 19A, the distributing valve release pipe. See figure 7. Emergency position. This position is used for the most prompt for the heavy application of the brake pipe. Brakes is required. Large direct opening between the brake pipe and the atmosphere. The direct passage makes a sudden heavy discharge of the brake pipe air. Causes in operating valve, the distributing valve to move to the emergency position, give it the maximum brake force shortest possible time. In the position allowed the locomotive brake cylinder pressure is maintained against leakage. Plain views of the rotary valve seat are shown in figure 7. The full lines denote port opening with the top of the rotary valve seat. Dotted lines denote ports of the cavity with the face of the rotary valve. Dot and dash lines indicate the port of the interior both valve and seat. Independent brake valve of the operation portion of the KH6P brake valve is shown in figure 6 and plate 1 consists of the body 72, figure 5, and which are assembled as independent quick release valve 97. Plate 1 shows the independent exhaust valve of the 97A with the independent application check for the 97B with the camshaft 76. The shaft of the brake valve body are the self-lapping unit 118, figure 6, and the housing 88 with the brake valve handle 109, figure 5. Independent brake valve portion may be removed from the pedestal by backing off the nuts for the 4 studs 19. Function of the independent brake valve portions are as follows. Independent brake valve inlet valve 122, figure 6, supplied with the air control locomotive brake actuated by the cam on shaft 76, figure 5. Independent quick release valve 97, the figure 5, provided with a quick release of locomotive brake supplied with the automatic brake valve that's passing. Independent brake valve handle 109 and running position on C with the release of the valve 97 to quickly vent with the application cylinder pipe air with the less release the locomotive brake either with full or partial relief if available depending on the application cylinder pipe is vented. Independent exhaust valve with the 97 the A plate 1 and provides an atmospheric opening self-lapping exhaust valve 134 during operation. Independent brake with the running position spring with the 98A seat the valve closing with the exhaust opening with the E exit in the body with the atmosphere with the brake valve with the handle with the application with the exhaust valve with the Paul 94 content. It's the exhaust valve plunger and C with the exhaust valve 97A. Independent application of the check valve 97B prevents backflow with the application cylinder pipe with the control chamber of the independent brake valve automatic brake valve applied. The handle position of the independent self-lapping brake valve with the provided independent control of the locomotive brake are 1 running 2 brake application zone with the release for the automatic brake application can be made with the depressing of the handle with the running position. Running position for the position with the relief of the independent locomotive with the automatic brake valve with the running position. Independent relief of the obtained with the move of the independent brake valve handle with the running. This establishes communication distributing valve relief of the pipe between the application cylinder with the distribution valve of the exhaust port of the automatic brake valve to obtain with the fastest relief of the locomotive brake handle is depressed for the running position. Quick release of the locomotive brake placed into the communication is established through the application cylinder pipe between the application cylinder pipe with the distribution valve. Quick release valve the exhaust port of the independent brake valve. To release the locomotive brake after the automatic brake application for the automatic brake valve handle is not in running position. Independent brake valve handle is depressed with the running position. Locomotive brake is quickly released because of the communication is established through the application cylinder pipe between the application cylinder the pipe distributing valve of the quick release valve port and independent brake valve. The application position. This position gave the quick application of the locomotive of the brake main reservoir air with the connected for the distributing valve of the application portion when the air of the relay to the brake cylinder. Amount of the brake application is determined to be the amount of the brake valve handle with the movement of the application over the no fang with the brake valve handle with the necessary for the brake valve automatically build up application pressure for the amount with the corresponding with the handle position, then laps off with the application pressure with is increased simply by moving the handle 109 with the right and decrease with the moving to the left. Shaft 76 with the plunger collar 84 figure 5 with the exhaust valve Paul with the 94 cam figure 6. Operates various valve with the independent brake valve. The independent brake valve handle is moved with the between running and full application position with the previously explained. Standard valve with the bell ringer valve figure 6 with the section CC are similar each with the operating handle with the 187 with the rotary valve key 180, rotary valve 179. Both valves are housed in similar body. The bodies of these valves have the attached for the brake valve pedestal with the 4-star of the 193. The standard valve has 3 handle positions beginning with the extreme left with the reverse handling, neutral forward standing with the handle with the spring loaded with the last located with the handle position in which with the passive over the quadrant shoulder with the during with the handle move with the neutral position with the port with the forward reverse handling pipes are connected to the exhaust port with the valve body with the same with the valve rotary valve ports. Forward standing position of the rotary valve ports are connecting with the reverse standing pipe with the port with exhaust ports of the standard valve body. Main reservoir air pipe above the rotary valve with the forward standing pipe port. Supply air pressure for the forward standing, the reverse standing position of the rotary valve ports with the connect with the forward standing port, pipe port, exhaust port with the standard valve body with the main reservoir air from the rotary valve to the reverse standing pipe port. Thus supplying air pressure to the reverse standing with the both forward and reverse standing is choke ported. And the standard valve, the rotary valve connects the main reservoir air to the exhaust port with the sounding warning as long as the standard valve handle remains in either standing position. Or the bell ringer valve has two handle positions, a bell ringing position with extreme left with the neutral to the right, the knots for the quadrant with the handle latch of the fits for the use of the location for the handle with the desired position, neutral position for the port with the bell ringer pipe to connect with the exhaust port, and the valve buddy with the bell ringer valve for rotary valve part. Bell ringer position of the rotary valve with the connect with the main reservoir air from above the rotary valve bell ringer pipe port, supplying air pressure for the operation bell ringer. Are the two position brake pipe got 164 figure 6 located on the side of the brake valve pipe. Achieve the open cove of the passage between the brake valve and the brake pipe with the double headings or with when more than one locomotive achieve the train such for the helper push of the two position cock must be closed with the handle with the automatic independent brake valve placed with the running with the position of automatic. All locomotives except for the one controlling with the train brakes with the brakes for the locomotive with the control from the locomotive controlling with the train brakes. However, the engine man with the locomotive not in control of the train brakes can apply with the release of the Brake independently. The train brakes properly. Manipulation. Independent brake valve handle. M3. A feed valve with the attached with the brake valve body with the regulate for the pressure brake pipe with the automatic brake valve handle running and holding position. Feed valve is provided with adjusted stop with the double pressure control. The diagrammatic views the figure 9 and 10 of the picture of the valve. All ports of the plane in order to facilitate the description of the main reservoir connected to both sides of the piston 20 on the side of the slide valve chamber and chamber K. Chamber N, Chamber M, and top of the passage 9 with the passage choke 25, passage P, Chamber K. Passage N also leads to the top of the regulating valve 7, and while the diaphragm chamber under the valve is always communication with the delivery pressure through passage O. Alright, opening main reservoir, enter for the feed valve, opening mark with the supply flows to the chamber K with the slide valve chamber, under the piston 20 of the piston, and spring pressure for the delivery with the pressure combined with the however the less for the main reservoir pressure for the slide valve chamber, under the piston, consequent with the piston slide valve will move over the piston, showing with the figure 9 with the main reservoir, air will flow with the delivery with the passage through port B through B in the slide valve with the valve 22 and ports port A and the seat. Main reservoir air flows from chamber K with the port P with the choke with the 25 with the passage for the M with the bulb with the piston. Passage N is connected to regulating valve 7 and held open with the time of the regulating spring 15 on it with the diaphragm 11. So the air passing from the choke is free of the flow of the passive regulating valve through the passage over the delivery passage with the consequently so for the long that regulating the valve is open with the pressure above the piston 20 will be less than that of the underneath the piston attached to the slide valve will remain in open position as illustrated. It will be noted that there are two ports for the slide valve C with the delivery passage pressure for the head with the reduced considerable amount below with the adjustment of the regulating spring 15 with the regulating valve with the 7 and with the fully open with the piston 20 will be moved up with the extreme position open the both ports of the slide valve with the choke with the restrict the flow of the main reservoir air pressure for the really cannot build up the chamber above the piston 20 as long with its valve 7 fully unseated. If limited reduction of the delivery pressure for that has been made with the regulating valve will not be fully open with the air flowing through the chokes will result with a low differential acting on piston 20, which will move upward only as far enough from port B with the slide valve with the register with the port A on the C. Closing with the delivery pressure for the bulb of the diaphragm 11 connected through port O becomes greater than spring pressure acting over the diaphragm, with the diaphragm will move downward, permitting spring 9 with the C with the regulating valve 7, the main reservoir air flow through choke 25 of the chamber for the M with above the piston 20 with a quickly equalizing the pressure underneath the spring 31, which will move the piston with the slide valve downward, closing position, figure 10, with a cutting off the flow of the main reservoir air pressure delivery chart passes through the slide valve. The parts will remain with the position until the delivery pressure for the diaphragm 11 becomes less than the value of the regulating spring 15 with the diaphragm will move upward and unseat with the regulating valve again with connecting on the top of the piston 20 to deliver air pressure for the piston slide valve will be moved upward to the open position with the reason with a high main reservoir pressure under the piston as compared to low delivery pressure above the chamber M. Alright, venturi tube action. The function of venturi tube Z is to obtain the sustained air delivery flow of the main reservoir delivery passage up to the point of the pressure for which the feed valve is adjusted. Its operation with the same principle of the steam inject for the main reservoir air flowing through the venturi tube with the low pressure for the delivery passage developed to increase the velocity of the small section of the venturi tube, which corresponds to the decrease of the pressure at the set point. At this point, passage O leaves the venturi tube and is small with the section throughout which will cover the pressure of the reduced in the diaphragm chamber below the delivery pressure of the permissive of the regulating spring 15 to open the regulating valve 7 or more with the allowing greater flow of the air for the consequently greater reduction of the pressure on the face of the supply piston 20. Its delivery pressure approaches the pressure for which the feed valve is adjusted the velocity flow of the venturi tube diminishes, therefore the effect of reducing the pressure of the diaphragm chamber to become proportionally less, thus permitting accumulation of the pressure of the diaphragm chamber, which tends to close the regulating valve with the true setting. Adjustment. The M3A with the two adjustable stops, the 18 encircling with the spring with the box, splitting with the lugs of the clove with the machine screw with when setting this valve with the set with the screw with low brake set pipe setting, loosening with the machine screw. Move the lower stop 18 again for the stop pin with this part with the regulating nut, tightening the machine screw with the set the valve with a high pressure, set upper stop 18 to the hit the stop pin with the same manner, therefore turning the regulating nut until the pin hits the either stop of the feed valve may be regulated with either high or low pressure. The M3A feed valve with adjustable stop should be placed and given 110 pounds high or 90 pounds depending on the class to service the local conditions, 70 pounds low brake pipe pressure. Or the distributing valve with the automatic valve with the mechanism for the operation of the brake locomotive with the corners for the movement of the automatic independent brake valve handles. The distributing valve with the 5 brake connections made through the end of the double chamber reservoir, 3 on the left and 2 on the right, 1 over the 3 over the left over the upper main reserve of the supply with the main reservoir, intermediate 2 for the application cylinder pipe leading with the independent automatic brake valve with 4, lower 4 distributing and release valve release pipe leading for the independent brake valve with the handle with the running position automatic brake valve with the 2 on the left. There's 2 on the right and lower over the brake pipe over the brake pipe connection, and the upper of the brake charge upper brake cylinder over the brake cylinder pipe of the brake to all brake cylinders on the locomotive. The distributing valve consists of the 2 portions called the equalizing portion and application portion for the connect for the double chamber of the reservoir, the 2 chambers of which they are called respectively the pressure chamber, the application chamber, later ordinarily connected for the application portion of the distributing valve in such a way that enlarge the volume of the part is over that part with the application cylinder. The connections between these parts are as well their operation may be compared with the miniature brake set with over the equalizing equalizing portion represented the surface portion pressure chamber with the equalizing auxiliary reservoir with the application portion always having practical with the same pressure of the cylinder with the brake cylinder. The equalizing portion pressure chamber that are used for the automatic application only with the reduction brake pipe pressure for the valve with the equalizing slide valve with the tank for the brake pressure application chamber of the end cylinder allowing the air to flow with the former over the later. Number 6K R type distributing valve and incorporates the double hop of the type of the application valve, referring to figure 12 application valve with the 54 pilot valve 57. They operate with the application piston valve application pistons to supply air with the main reservoir braking cylinder during the application of the end of the application piston first engaged with the unseat of the pilot valve allowing the air from the spring chamber to flow over the brake cylinders. The opening of the pilot valve quickly drops the pressure over the spring side application valve 54 and so much for the choke restrict for the supply of the air chamber the tusk of the main reservoir pressure acting over the outer annular area of valve 54 is able to particularly overcome the spring tension, reduce the air pressure for the spring chamber, the result of the small differential acting with the application of the piston, open to the application valve 54, spring 63 and 64 promptly close with the pilot application value, the application of the piston moves lap after the required brake cylinder pressure is obtained because of the large diameter of the application piston, the very lightly differential is required to move the exhaust slide valve to the release position. As the air is emitted to the brake cylinder, comes directly from the main reservoir of the supply with a particularly unlimited any of the pressure application cylinder with the application piston with a closed the exhaust valve with the one application valve with the mid with the air with the main reservoir locomotive brake cylinder until the pressure equal to slightly exceed the application cylinder, whereupon the application cylinder valve with the return to the lap position closed with the application valve with any of the variation application cylinder pressure will be exactly duplicated in locomotive brake cylinder with the result of the pressure maintained regardless of the any of the brake cylinder leak of the piston travel. The operation of locomotive brake therefore depends on the emitting air and then releasing the air from the application cylinder. The independent application directly means the independent brake valve automatic application by means of the equalizing portion of the air stored in the pressure chamber. On all emergency application, the application chamber is cut from the application cylinder of the pressure chamber to equalize with the reduced volume high pressure surface application. For a result of the corresponding high cylinder pressure is obtained. Refer to the isometric views of the slide valve seat, figure 13 with the ports as follows. H leads to passage 2, 2 leads to the application cylinder, automatic brake valve, the independent brake valve, W leads to the application chamber, 4 leads to the distribution valve release, and 1 release pipe, 1 leads to the safety valve. The operation distribution valve is described later under equipment. Type A safety valve with the personal safety valve, figure 14, event with the pressure predetermined point, but then to prevent the extent of the brake cylinder pressure on the locomotive. When the pressure cavity under the valve 3 is sufficient to overcome the tension of spring 5 of the valve 3 lifted from the seat, upward move with the open ports of the E with the permits airflow from the cavity with the A through chamber B with the port C with the atmosphere at the same time at port a port of the air, a part of the air from the cavity A flows through the valve ports X into the spring chamber D, then through ports Y into the body 2 with the chamber E between the body 2 and the shell of the 17, thence through filter 16 of the atmosphere, F with the pressure below with the 3 degrees with the spring 5 with the force of valve 3 downward, restricting the opening of the atmosphere through the port C, but permitting airflow through the valve of the ports X, continuing the spring chamber to D with all the chamber D with the opening atmosphere, all type of the connection ports Y, and the body is sufficient small to restrict the exhaust so that the pressure builds up very rapidly with the chamber D with the assisting spring 5, forcing valve 3 quickly to its seat. To adjust the safety valve with the maximum open pressure, in this case 68 pound with the rotor, remove the cotter pin, remove cotter 20, nut 19, lock washer 18, shell 17, remove the cap, nut 13, screw down the back off with the adjusting screw, nut 6, finally replace the cap nut, mixing the closing pressure with adjust the changing the side of the ports wide with using throttling ring 7 for the purpose of the after adjustment, screw down locking ring 8. This replaces the shell lock washer castle nut and cotter pin. UAH brake cylinder. The illustration figure 615 shows the view of the UAH improved brake cylinder, which is made with the inside to meet all operational requirements of which incorporate the feature for the contributing towards the satisfactory operation and economical maintenance of the brake cylinder is designed to prevent entrance of the dirt. The cylinder body pressure combined with a single casting tube with the bolt flange mounting with a Wabco tight mounting of the pipe connection piston forward with a hollow rod with the provided loose push rod 10 attached for the levered rod with the brake rigging and push rod holder 39 is attached to the outer end of the piston rod. The solid Wabco packing cup 5 snaps into the pressure face of the piston with the circumference of the perimeter of the piston with the match for the form, the shoulder of which the packing cup is fitted and groove for the back of the shoulder contained with the piston lubricated with the space back for the heel of the packing cup with the front of the lubricator swab provides groove around piston which is filled with lubricant so the spread of lubricant over the cylinder wall which in each movement of the piston prevent the entry of the dirt of the piston hollow rod with the ground true with the diameter serve with the non-pressure head 13 fitted with the whole hollow rod lubricator packing seal of 63 fit in place spring seat 64 which is placed with the grease and served with the lubricate with the whole rod as well as the shield of the interior cylinder against dirt and moisture. Since the atmospheric air must enter the non-pressure end of the cylinder during the release movement with the non-pressure head with the fitted with the curled air strainer 14 strainer is in cartridge type held with the plate with the strainer retraining ring 15 prevents flying dirt with the water containing directly into the strainer. Type HA filter. The Type HA filter, figure 16, you would prevent the passage of the dirt moisture with the air flowing from the main reservoir into the equipment airflow. You would locate with the main reservoir pipe with leaving the last reservoir. Type of the filter, consider the dirt chamber and a baffled portion of the filter unit with a support with the cover to fit with the units, 2 tap lugs supporting brackets, and a raised arrow cast to indicate the direction of airflow with the baffle with the spring rib, which imports the swirling movement into the airflow, which aids the removing the dirt moisture with the depositing with the dirt chamber. Plate tap aid with the dirt chamber provided with a drain type. Drain cock may be placed on either side of the bottom and the other tap plugged. The filter unit formed with a wire screen and covered with a felt, which is pleated around with the support with a central perforated metal tube. Felt sealing pads are applied with the top of the bottom. Deep-seated method folding felt concentrates with small spaces, large filter areas, several times the greater with the inlet and outlet, entering the annular intake with the diffused downward between the the baffled dirt chamber, past the filter unit with a central opening on the top. Dirt chamber detector with the removing the nuts of the cover stove, after which the filter unit is released backing off the castle nut lower end of the tie bolt. Centrifugal dirt collector. Centrifugal dirt collector is used in this equipment. The piping diagram, plate 10 with the dirt collector is used to prevent the pipe scale with the cinders. Other format with the reaching distributing valve with the brake valve. Figure 17 section view with the standard check valve type with which for the detachable enlarged chamber. Enlarged dirt chamber with a check valve with stain features. Slight compromise. 2 separate portions, upper or body portion with the pipe connection that are made with the lower or dirt chamber. The portion contains a press umbrella-shaped check valve with the 2 portions of the valve together with the joint. The between is protected means of the rubber gasket. Attached dirt chamber provides the easy sealing large capacity permits the time of the cleaning and the periods to be the same in the distributing valve of the brake cylinders. The roof of the check valve is held, hold the dirt chamber in the collector of the dirt with all condition of the air brake operation. Body portion of machine seated with the check valve with the seat with a heavy production pressure curve above it, and such during the emergency application, recharging the empty equipment and thereby shutting off the communications between the dirt chamber and the dirt collector outlet. The check valve is so designed to play with the valve stem as permanent with the rocking motion, whereby fine dust may collect at the top of the check valve with the wall shaken off into the dirt chamber. Your duplex air gauges, the 2 duplex air gauges, figure 18, in which of the 2 pipe connections, 1 gauge is connected with the main reservoir, red hand, equalizing reservoir, white hand, while the other gauge has connection with the locomotive brake cylinders, red hand, and the brake pipe, white hand. 1/4 inch emergency brake valve with a 1/4 inch 1 inch emergency brake valve. Figure 19 provides the mean with the venting of the brake pipe with the chain with the emergency brake application for the emergency brake valve with the body 2, with the vent valve 3 with the valve spring 8 with the vent valve 9. vent nut 6, valve lever 10, attached by 2, rivet 11, and an operating lever with a similar rivet. Normally, the brake pipe is shut with the brake pipe air prevented with the being vented with the seat vent valve 3 with the open operated lever 9 with the pull with the valve. The lever is moved downward, unseat with the vent valve 3, bringing brake pipe air to vent with the atmosphere. Ensure the emergency brake application for the operating lever 9 is relieved. The spring 8 seats valve 3 with the prevent the loose brake pipe air pipe fixtures. Your branch pipe T figure 20 is located with the distributing valve of the branch pipe for the purpose of preventing moisture that may be deposited with the brake pipe for any cover of the dirt draining with the into the branch pipe connection with the vents of the distributing valve. The fitting of the interior core design with the outlet of the brake pipe of the branch pipe is at the top, thus the air into the brake pipe and flow upward through the pipe opening at the side of the branch pipe. Moisture, heavy particles of the dirt passing through the brake pipe. The main reservoir cutout cock figure 21 is the cock of the vent valve, the air main reservoir, removing the brake valve, the handle, feed valve, etc. Before the cock is closed, the brake valve should be closed with the brake valve handle placed in the emergency position. This is prevented with the slide valve, the feed valve, rotary valve, the brake valve being lifted off their seat from their seats. Cutout cocks replaced with the brake cylinder piping with the cutout and cutting out of the brake cylinder with the necessary at each end of the brake pipe, but they also play with the branch pipe of the main reservoir pipe of the distributing valve. Hose coupling figure 22 of the brake pipe connection throughout the train when cars are being separated with the switching hose should be uncoupled to prevent the rupture of the damage. Dumbing couplings figure 23 provided at each end of the locomotive, which the housing coupling should be attached but is not coupled, protect against injury to the housing coupling and dirt entering the pipes. Combined air strainer check valve. The dead engine feature shown in the diagrammatic view of the piping diagram plates to 1 to 12 for the operational locomotive brake of the operator of the locomotive train of the inoperative of any of the cause. Figure 24 show the combined strainer of the check valve to choke. If the parts are not required at the time of the cutout cock is provided, the cock should be kept closed except under conditions just mentioned. The air from the operating brake pipe of the locomotive must be supplied through the brake pipe of the locomotive operating train brake with a cutout cock. Open air for the brake pipe, end of the brake pipe. Pass through the curled hair strainer, lift the check valve 4, hold the seat strongly, spring 2, pass the choke valve bushing out of the main reservoir to the main reservoir, then providing the pressure of the operating brakes to the locomotive. The strainer protects the check valve with the choke with the dirt, and the spring 2 with the overcome the check valve with the ensure the valve seating, and while assuring the ample pressure to operate the locomotive brakes, keep the main reservoir pressure somewhat lower than brake pipe pressure, thereby reducing leakage from the former choke, prevents the sudden drop in brake pipe pressure for the application for the train brakes, which would otherwise occur with the uncharged main reservoir cut and charged brake pipe. Operation of equipment. I'm going to cut the tape there. Testing.